you. Good morning. It being 9 a.m. on Wednesday, June 12th, I would like to call the Kane County Human Services Committee to order. Mr. Tepe, I will require you for quorum today, as we have Mr. Linder, Mr. Tarver, and Miss Allen dialing in remote.
No problem. Just need to vote.
Sure.
Need to vote then.
Call us in. Roll.
Allen,
Allen, present by remote is allowed. Thank you.
Kenyon.
Debbie, thanks for the text. Appreciate that.
Kenyon,
Yeah.
Lewis, Silva,
Silva is here.
Tarver, Linder, Tepe,
Deputy here.
Surges.
Here.
You have an
And
in-person quorum.
Ms. Lewis said she is not attending, correct?
Correct.
Okay, perfect. Request for remote attendance for, and let's give all three, Linder, Tarver, and Allen, if that's acceptable to the group. Mr. Kenyon, could I have a motion to approve the minutes of May 15th?
I'll ask for unanimous consent.
Any opposition or conversation? Thank you. I don't see, we have two guests here. Mr. Ford, are they with you? I'm sorry, Mr. Frank, are they with you?
So both of them are interns. One is a
Microphone?
another is a junior in college.
Which universities are you attending? Okay. Well, welcome this morning. This is so exciting on a Wednesday morning. Come. No public comment on screen, is that correct?
Right? You should have brought them yesterday,
Thank you.
so they could have changed their major.
Okay, monthly financial reports are placed on file. Department of Human Resource Management, Jamie, unless we are out of tolerance on anything, I have 5 or 6 items highlighted that I think are going to take just a little bit of time. And Mr. Kenyon is fast on us today, so.
Nothing's out of tolerance. Everything is moving along fine, so nothing to highlight.
Does anybody have any questions about the reports? I know this is our 3rd month in a row that we're ignoring them and not doing a deep dive, but if that's okay, we'd like to continue forward. Item 9A, monthly training reports.
Again, that's within tolerance. There's nothing to report there.
Thank you. Dr. Silva, item 11A, new business resolution approving the 2025 holiday schedule for Kane County offices.
I will move.
Mr. Kenyon,
Second.
any conversation on that? Please call that.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Silva,
Yes.
Mr. Tarver,
Tarver abstain.
you. Did Linder show up? No, okay. Tepe,
Deputy, yes.
Surges.
Yes.
It passes.
Bill, welcome to the meeting. Was that shoulder reconstruction that we saw?
Rotator cuff and bicep tear, but yes, sorry for
Very
being
good.
late.
Good to see you feeling better and joining yesterday. Thank you. Item 11B, 2025 health insurance. Jamie, if I can sum this up, we are sticking with Blue Cross Blue Shield,
Yes.
but the broker has identified not a substantial, but a change that they recommend for us that has to do with the aggregate limit. If you could go ahead and explain that just a bit.
Yes, I have just a short presentation of what we are proposing. We did discuss this in an earlier meeting, the first one, and this would be the merging of the union and non-union plans. The differences originated some time ago when the county wanted to raise the deductible for ER visits from $250 to $500. At that time, since the unions did not agree to that, they created a non-union plan, which is substantially almost exactly the same, except for that change in deductible, as well as a very small change in the PPO's out-of-pocket maximum. It costs us more to administer 6 plans instead of 3. The difference is negligible. I think with the prevalence of urgent cares and things like that, the overuse of the ER is not the problem that it was back when this was created. We actually had some feedback from some board members last year asking why our deductible for the ER was so high for the non-union plans as well. I think just for the sake of consistency as well as ease of management, merging those two plans together, which would be essentially making the non-union plan the same as the union plan. So it doesn't require any negotiation with the unions. Nothing is changing for the unions. It's the non-union plan we would be adjusting.
But that remains consistent with the goal that we've had for the past several years to try and not have divergence, but to bring everything back into true standards.
Correct.
Yes.
Absolutely. And I think the other reason to do that is back when that happened, they started offering Sun Life, decreasing with age life insurance benefit to the non-union staff that were on the health plan to make up for the difference in the two plans. That's again, an extra management piece that we would no longer have to do since we would be offering the same benefit to all employees.
Great job. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I'm not sure that I understand the non-union Sun Life decreasing life insurance benefit eliminated. Could you please give me a little more detail
Yes.
than what you've just shared?
Yes, because we were offering different plans to union and non-union staff. The county at the time, the board at the time made the decision to try to offer a benefit to kind of make up for the difference in cost between the two plans by offering a small life insurance benefit.
If we're saving a nickel by doing this, we're going to spend that nickel and get you a plan. But if the plans are now equalized, there's no reason to spend that nickel.
Yes, we only offered that Sun Life insurance plan to those electing the non-union plan. So the union staff did not get that benefit. Only the non-union staff got that benefit because of the difference in the plans. So, you know, if you're going to make the plans the same, then we can no longer give something to the non-union staff that we don't give to the union.
How
staff.
many people might be affected with this?
I don't have that number in front of me. I would guess that there's a couple hundred subscribers, but they are getting that improved plan in place of it.
And they would have the option to continue, I would imagine, at their own expense.
They could continue it at their own expense with Sun Life if they wanted to, yes.
Mr. Kenyon,
What's the amount?
I don't have that.
The amount of,
The death benefit?
so it decreases with age. So it's,
Hey, there's some reason to get-
So for you, it literally would be a nickel. So yeah, it's,
I believe the lowest payout is like $10,000 for the, well, 10,000 is the lowest, I
That-
believe.
Unbelievable how much that would help somebody when they pass for funeral expenses and everything else.
Mike, I live it every day. I agree.
Yeah, that,
I agree.
IMRF
I
does
think-
offer a death benefit as well, so it was not the sole death benefit available to employees. So employees, all full-time employees.
This
have
stipend
IMRF
was
as
just an
well.
equalizer.
It
So
was
I
a- it
don't,
was
I
an
don't perceive it as
equalizer.
we're taking anything away.
deal. It's
Yeah.
a-
No.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with giving employees a good deal.
Yeah.
I agree.
We have lost staff and sitting board members, and hopefully everyone took advantage of that.
Okay,
vote.
so just so we're
Thanks.
clear, when you say I agree, we are removing that because we've now equalized it and that stipend we were giving is coming off.
I understand.
Okay.
That part I understand, but I do agree with Commissioner Kenyon that it is a nice thing to offer. So not knowing the cost to the county, I can't offer more at this point.
I do have that cost in a slide of what it's currently costing the county just to have it for the non-union staff. Keep in mind that if you were to keep it, you would have to expand it to the union staff as well, which would about double the cost.
Mr. Chairman Allen?
Deb, hang on one second. We're trying to see if we have that slide.
Sure.
So the Sun Life, currently costing us about $50,000 a year. So we would have to get an actual price on, adding that. It's about $8 per employee per month, is the typical cost.
And again, what I will, I don't want to put my personal feelings on this, but I do want to point out this was being done as an equalizer. We felt that the non-union people were at a disadvantage compared to the union people, so we offered this. If that deductible for the emergency room has now been equalized, I don't have an issue removing this as long as the option is there for them. If they'd like to continue this on their own, you by all means buy it. But I don't believe that we as a county should be paying for this because the equalization has happened. And I'm hoping for support on that.
I would like to add too, that we also have the NC PERS life insurance plan that employees can opt for, where they can choose to buy a low-cost life insurance plan that I think is $7 or $8 per pay period, and offers more insurance for the dollar. It's run by IMRF than the Sun Life plan. So we do have life insurance options for employees who are interested in purchasing a lower-cost life insurance plan.
And Jamie, this isn't the meat and potatoes of it. So let's accelerate at least to, there's a big ticket $1 million decision item that's needed here. We're going to Las Vegas and playing Risk Tolerance in a few minutes, and we need to figure that out.
One of the other changes that we're proposing is adding an HSA plan to the county's offerings. I can go into that a little more later, but it offers the freedom of a PPO, but at a lower cost because it does have a high deductible. We would also make a contribution to a health savings account for those employees. This is appealing to new employees. We've had a lot of new employees ask for it simply because they have existing HSA accounts. They are already familiar with utilizing these health plans. They'd like to retain and continue to add money to their HSA account. So it is a very common trend in the health insurance right now. And I think it's a good offering.
And Jamie, we appreciate all the effort into this because this was at the request of the committee to research this. Mike Baker's team came back with Jamie and said, yeah, we think we can layer this in. I will be, extremely curious to see how many people actually take us up on this, because was this just hyperbole or was this really of benefit and is it absorbed? So, I think these are great, but.
One of the other things we're also, again, we're trying to expand the useful offerings and potentially, by merging the plans. And also another suggestion is to phase out the HMO Illinois plan. As we looked into this option, I think we really need to increase awareness with those that are electing this plan. The only difference between the HMO Illinois plan and the HMO Blue Advantage plan is 3 doctor groups that are in downtown Chicago and Indiana. We have, I think around just under 100 participants in the plan, and only 2 of those participants have ever used one of those doctors in that
Can
group.
we get granular? And when I say we, I mean only you that would be HIPAA compliant to do this. Can you get granular enough to reach out to those people and just have a conversation and say, we'd really like to do this, but once upon a time you saw this person, do you ever anticipate that again, or would that cause a disruption?
Absolutely. We don't intend to take this away from anyone who wants to keep it, whether they're using it or not. It would simply be, we have to work with the unions, and then this isn't happening immediately, but we want to phase it out, which means stop offering it to new employees. And we want to basically educate those that are electing it but not using it, that they are paying more for something that they are not utilizing. And they can, at open enrollment, opt into the Blue Advantage if they want. So that would just be increasing awareness with our current employee base, and then not offering it to future participants once we work that out. We have to adjust.
So Jamie, for us that are a little bit slower than you and for our interns, everything moves at a snail's pace, kids. And this might take 3 months for us to get it to a final vote. So the correct thing to ask you is, when is your deadline for decisions on this? And is just this conversational today, or do you need this move forward today?
It's really, we need a decision on
By-
we would like a decision today on the merging of the plans, the HSA plan, the dental plan, and the aggregate stop loss, so that we can start moving forward with contracts prior to open enrollment. The decision to phase out the HMOI plan will take time. This will take potentially years. So we're not looking for any kind of board decision on that because again, we don't want to take it away from any employees who currently have it. We're simply looking at this point, just educating people on the function of the plan. And if we are able to work out the details of union contracts, but when you're changing something that affects the unions, it takes years because we have staggered out union contracts and
Thank you for that context.
so
Appreciate it.
that-
All right,
that
go
will
on to
take
the
time.
dental plan and the removal of the aggregate stop loss is the big conversation.
Yes. So we have choices on the dental plan. The original offer from the Cigna, which is our current provider, was an increase in rate. And Assured Partners did negotiate them down to a flat renewal, which means we would have no change in the cost,
You mean the same price?
the same price. So, and then they did also quote it out. So Sun Life did quote a less expensive plan. So there's a reduction in cost offered to that, but employees don't like change. If they're offering us a flat renewal, I think we should.
What's the
continue with-
differentiator?
Let me give you the.
Or the
exact one. I
differential?
can Slide it on that too. So the Cigna dental plan, we currently pay, if you look at that far left column, 808,000 is the current annual premium. Their original offer was 874,000. They took it back down to 808, so that is flat. Sun Life is offering 739,000, so they're offering a reduction from the current.
So $75,000 savings?
Yes.
Okay, I mean, if we can just go around the room, Dr. Silva, $75,000, would you care to switch from Cigna to Sun?
I mean, all things being equal, $75,000 is a big difference.
Well, that's good, right? That's good, right? Mr. Kenyon? That's fine with me.
I need more information, but
Yeah.
my ears are perked. I can tell you that.
Michael?
I've had good luck with what we use, but we can save 75,000. Is it just one time? That's what I-
75,000 per year, so the 2 years.
Should be at 2 years. so
Yeah.
then I guess I would see nothing wrong, but I would check with people that, like my dentist, people like that.
I believe the disruption was 2 dentists. Am I way off on
Oh,
that?
No, there's far more disruption than that. Here's
Okay.
here's the highlights on that. So we did get full information on the potential disruption. Number of dentists currently being used by our employees is 619. Those in network with Sun Life is 417. So it's over 200 dentists that are currently being utilized by employees that would no longer be in network. So they are not all in network with the current carrier either. It's a PPO plan that does offer a pretty good out-of-network benefit. And that is when our broker was discussing with us, that was one of his highlights is the out-of-network benefit for Sun Life and Cigna is pretty good. So you don't have to use an in-network dentist to still be able to utilize the plan. But potentially you have to file your own claims and things like that, which is challenging. So while I understand that the benefit is still good, I believe that the extra effort we're asking of our employees, mind you, that 75,000 isn't all savings to the county. That is split between the county and the employee. So that's a total premium. So there's a cost share on that. So
So to our interns, again, our health insurance line item is close to $18 million, $75,000. To have to do an additional amount of work that's only going to upset your staff, $30,000 isn't worth it. Okay, when you put it in that context, and that's what we're talking about. Jamie and Bill, I didn't ask you, but Jamie, do you have a staff recommendation on this?
my recommendation is to stay with Cigna, as that's the feedback I generally get from employees, that if they can keep their current plan that they have established, they prefer that. We're looking at a couple of dollars per employee per month savings. That I think that the employees would rather pay that extra amount than address.
Bill, do you have any input on that, or Deb?
Thank you. I was gonna say, I was gonna mirror what Dr. Silva said until Jamie shared that information. So I 100% agree with what Jamie's analysis is about keeping the current one based on the convenience piece.
Deb?
And the amount is just not enough to make it worth it at this time, I think.
Perfect. Vern, we invited you to sit in, so.
It always amazes me how people seem to fear any change associated with benefits. And, we saw that last year when we were trying to, change out of Blue Cross Blue Shield. Even though there was a tremendous financial advantage, there were major objections by the people, really based upon fear. So I'm always in favor of saving money. And I would urge to make sure that if the benefit's the same, saving $75,000 a year is always good for the county.
So Jamie, what I think consensus wise, what I'm hearing on that is to stay with Cigna it's just not enough of a differentiator there. And Vern, I did hear you. I'm not ignoring that by any means. But this is what I heard from the group was.
But that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm used to it.
Okay, let's go on to that final one then, because this is really,
The final one is the potential removal of the aggregate stop loss. What that is it's essentially an insurance plan that the county buys from our carrier, that if we go over, our self-insured plan goes over a certain amount in total aggregate costs for the year, that they will kick in and pay that additional amount.
what is the dollar figure on that purchase-ish?
We have a slide here in here. Find it. Sorry. The amount we pay is $93,229 in premium for that.
All right, so here, if I could put this one in context, just under $100,000, and our broker is telling us that of his clients over the history of time, one has ever hit this. And with us, we have $8.9 million sitting in reserve, which is in excess of what we've been told should be in reserve. Is there a risk to this? Sure there is. I think this is one of those where we should save that $100,000. This is kind of a no-brainer to me, but I'm oversimplifying it and I do not want to step on your toes, young lady. So.
No, I certainly agree with everything you said. We did not even approach our aggregate stop loss during COVID, and with all the additional health expenses, we had hospitalizations, we had some very high cost, medical conditions occur during that time period, and we still did not hit the aggregate. We do still retain the individual stop loss of $205,000, which means we do have that in place so that any employee who individually goes over $205,000 in costs, the insurance plan does kick in and then pay the remainder of that.
So if
do
we
retain
have that per employee, what is this exactly?
This is an aggregate. So it's if our total out-of-pocket expenses across all employees exceeds a certain amount. So
But we've never hit this ever.
we've never hit it. No, we have not.
So I'm asking the committee, it's $93,000. The broker is suggesting, let's not do that this year. I believe staff is saying, I think we have enough in reserve that this would be worth a gamble. We can revisit it again next year. But there is a gamble there, although it's minuscule. Again, Dr. Silva, let's just go around the horn and.
I mean, based on our trajectory, I am more than willing to take the risk.
Okay. Michael? Bill,
No, same as Dr. Silver. It would be worth taking the risk.
Deb?
I do have a couple of questions. Can
Go
I
ahead.
ask how many years you're looking at that we haven't needed this special insurance? How many years? Is it 5 years going
Ever.
back to COVID, or 10, or ever?
Well, we've been in this self-insured plan since 2019. So we've never utilized it. And we've been in this self-insured plan since 2019.
Okay, so these 5 years, good. Now, if we did go over, is that when we would dip into the 8.9 million?
Yes, any amount over funding comes out of that reserve account. We have gotten quite good at estimating this, those first couple of years, estimating how much our costs would be. We were kind of all over the place. We've gotten good at it. We expect 2023 almost broke completely even. So we were only about $100,000 under estimate. So we put about 100,000 into reserves in 2023, although those amounts are still changing a little bit. So we have
Jamie-
gotten very good at estimating this.
Jamie, you get all the credit in the world for getting very good at it. Thanks. Yes, I think we can get rid of this extra 100,000. Be good to save it.
Interns, this is old people building an in-house app to track this and getting good at it. So give old people points here. Vern, any,
After
He
that
did-
comment, no.
He did not
There we
mean
go.
Jamie when he said
Jamie,
that.
what do you need to move this forward?
We do have a resolution up on your next item, which approves Blue Cross and Cigna. And then we have a resolution for rates. Those rates include the addition of the HSA, which I can go into more detail on the HSA if you want. It's like I said, they're pretty common plans right now. So this is an example. This kind of shows what we would be doing for that HSA-based plan. The county would make a contribution of $1,500 for a single or $3,000 for a family to the plan. And then the deductibles would be as shown on the screen. So we would like the approval. I don't need a resolution, just voice vote approval. If you approve those rates, you're essentially approving.
Dr.
This other
Silva,
model.
do I have a recommendation for item 11C, authorizing Blue Cross Blue Shield and Cigna as Kane County's group health and dental provider for 2025?
I will move that, Chair.
Mr. Kenyon,
Second.
any conversation on that? Although I think we've discussed it quite a bit. Please call the roll.
Allen,
Alan, I.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Silva,
Silva, yes.
Tarver. Mr. Tarver,
I don't see
looks
him
like
on.
he's lost.
Yeah.
Okay.
We lost him.
Surges
Yes.
and Tepe.
Except a yes.
Passes.
Excited to see where the HSA goes. This will be fun to see data wise in the next year or two. Item D, resolution approving the 2025 mental health and dental contributions, monthly health and dental contributions.
Silva moves.
Kenyon seconds.
Alan, second.
Debbie, thank you. Jamie, go ahead.
We have rate sheet attached up here. This is, I'd love to take full credit for that, but I think Assured Partners gets most of the credit for those rates tending to be getting very close. They're a great partner for us in establishing all of this and working through this self-insured plan. So they are the big driver of those rates. So the rates are attached based on the 8317 split, pure split.
Just a reminder to the committee and those listening, our health broker, Assured Partners, is a flat fee, not a commissioned fee, as are our liability and workers' comp. That firm is equally flat fee based, not commission based. So they are truly working in our best interest on this. And I think Mike and his team have just done an outstanding job this year. So. Mr. Tepe,
What costs have gone up on this for this?
The HMO plans went up 1% and 5.5% on the PPO
To the employees?
to the employee and the county.
Okay, so we're both getting an increase?
Yes.
that the aggregate amount, or is that like, does the employee pay that 5% and so it's a 10%, or is it 5% divided out?
1%.
5.5% on the total premium combined. So of course, also 5.5% on each part. So the total premium goes up 5.5%. If you split that into 8317, then each portion has also gone up
Thank you.
5.5%. So it's 5.5% to everyone.
Please call the vote.
Allen,
Alan, I.
Kenyon,
Yeah.
Silva,
Silva, yes.
Tarver,
Tarver, yes.
Tepe,
Except a yes.
Surges.
Yes.
Passes.
And Bill, we did call one vote while you were out, just to let you know.
Thank you.
Item D, we have been asked by the executive suite to put together our goals and objectives for 2025. They are looking for a 1 or 2 line sentence outlining those items that we would really like to be focusing on and concentrating on. If this was coming to me and I was asked to craft something, I think that morale of our employees is probably the single largest task that this committee has. I think so often we get dragged into the weeds, and I mean, this committee gets dragged deep into the weeds to worry about everything from policy to dollar figures. And everything we do absolutely affects a staff person, an employee, and we have 1,400 of them. Some of those people put their lives on the line daily, as our sheriff sitting in the back room. You know, other people are called out in the middle of the night for dead bodies. I mean, we have state's attorney's offices. Keeping that morale, you know, and what do? Once a year, we hold once every other year, we give them cookies and say, thanks for your 35 years of commitment.
I hope there's ice cream in.
I hope there's ice cream too this year, but we can do better than that, folks. So if I had a mission statement, a goal and objective, while this doesn't quantify anything, my personal goal would be that we find some way to make sure our people understand that we are here to support them, that we are here to back them up, and that they feel that from the top down. And that's all I have, but I think they're asking us to craft something that we can put into a statement. Feel free to go around the room and give yours. Jamie will put those together and represent. Monica?
Actually, I was planning on bringing this up under new business as well. It's kind of touching on what we're doing. As I'm out in the community and meeting with very, very talented young people, one of the things that I keep hearing from families and these young people is the need for internship opportunities. So we have a county with a lot of services. And why are we not doing more to engage that youth and open the door to a great career path? So I would like
Good
to
smile. That's you too. Come on.
and I was planning on speaking about that before you showed, but I think that's just part of the plan that you're here because it's very important to me that we provide these opportunities. Now, from your point of view, Director, there could be a lot that goes into vetting an intern, but I really would love to take a look at those policies because one of the things that I've heard from very responsible, very audacious and talented young people at 18, 19 years old is I need an internship, but a lot of places require you to be 21. So I want I would love to talk about those things because that's something else that we can do to bring ownership to the constituency of their county and their county services. Thank you.
Am I mistaken in saying that, was his name Ben? Was he our intern from last year and is he in Washington this summer?
That's correct.
So he was a county intern last summer and this year he's in DC and I mean,
Working for Congressman Roger Christomorphy.
okay, I think that's just outstanding. I mean, wrong team, but that's okay. It's outstanding.
Solidly wonderful team.
It's a solid move. Monica, thank you so much. Mr. Tarver?
I don't have anything at this time.
Okay, Ms. Lewis? I'm sorry, Ms. Allen?
I want to say thanks for evening out the insurance premiums. I was one of the people that employees approached about the unfairness between the 250 and the 500. So I think that will be a morale booster right there. And Cliff, your idea of saying that is our goal, I absolutely agree with that.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Kenyon? Got it, sir. Mr. Teppi, because we asked you to join us.
No, I agree with your key point of employee morale being a
Okay.
big item. We need to continue and anything we can do to, improve that, or not necessarily improve, but to continue those opportunities, I think would be fine.
Spectacular.
the mistake that a lot of people make, big business, they concentrate on their customers and they don't take care of their employees. I mean, Amazon is being sued. You know, when you don't get your paycheck, you're unhappy. So they don't really know how to treat everybody equally. Employees, that's our best asset. We have to treat them well.
70% of our budget, folks. So, I mean,
We had employees at our farm, we had two workforce of 55 years
it's wonderful.
and a couple 50 years. Very desperate people, but no, they really great people, and we always took care of them.
Mr. Kenyon, you are a marvel. I appreciate those comments. So Jamie, I think if you're looking for two sentences, I believe the first one revolves around morale and the second one might be something beefing up the internship opportunities. If we can craft something there that would the committee allow us to do this via email? This is what we've done and we can get it upstairs. Would that be okay?
Great idea.
That just, we won't reply all, but yes.
I want to avoid stepping on anyone's toes. Internships are currently handled at the department level. So if we take this over from human resources, we are taking that away from the departments that currently want to have the freedom to choose and establish their own internships.
Find a way to do an overarch that
It's-
says we support this.
Okay,
They can have their own autonomy with that, but that we as a collective are supportive of this initiative.
And Mr. Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
And also, do we have parameters that they have to go by, or it's just whatever they think?
other than the Department of Labor requirement that they be paid, we really, have to make minimum wage. So they have to have a position established for them and pay them minimum wage. So, ultimately, other than the legal parameters, are the only parameters that we put forth to them. They like to have the freedom to develop their own programs as needed.
I guess that's great, to pay a fair wage, but I know students who would just be happy to come and can we expand on volunteer opportunities, within departments as a learning opportunity? Something we can start to look at.
Certain departments do utilize volunteers, and that's just, we have to be sure we're compliant. There are a lot of rules that have to be in place to offer someone a volunteer. It has to be a bona fide humanitarian purpose. Animal control, for example, utilizes volunteers to walk the animals. So, and that's a suitable reason for someone to have an unpaid intern. So as long as the reason they put forth is one that meets those criteria, they also can't displace a paid worker. So if they displace a paid worker or they do work that you would otherwise have to pay someone to do, there's a limitation on being able to offer a volunteer for that. The only reason we can have volunteers at all is because we're a government or nonprofit agency. For-profit businesses can't have volunteers. So there are much tighter rules than there used to be years ago. And it really is, anyone who has interns now pays them. So interns looking for internships are not really typically looking for unpaid internships.
Off.
Roth here. How many interns do we currently have across the whole county?
I don't have that figure for you.
Okay.
Two, right here. That's,
Okay, that's it. huh?
I'm joking now.
Okay. I was in IT and we used interns a lot and it's a huge benefit. But a lot of times there's resistance from people that aren't familiar with the advantages and they just look at it as more work. And I think that's something we can use HR to train the people, because I think within reason, and we got to decide what's the max we could have.
All of our departments do utilize interns at some
Right.
level as paid employees. So
Right.
they have paid slots for interns. KDOT Finance has one right now.
Right.
Health Department always has interns. So, most of our departments do utilize interns or volunteers on some level. And again, as long as there's more, you can have educational interns as well, as long as they are receiving more educational benefit than we are receiving work. Again,
Right, right.
there's just some limitations on unpaid internships. So
Right.
that is
There's
the
a-
only part of it we regulate for the
No,
departments.
and that's unpaid, but
Yeah,
even
if I
paid.
can jump in and just, there's an ancillary benefit to this that I'd like to, and just, I've made this comment now a few times. part of our culture here at this county seems so much to be that we are a destination for employees, that the employees come and they stay here forever. And I have suggested to you or and to this body that change to that might be refreshing in order to say, hey, listen, we don't necessarily want to hire somebody for 50 years, but we do have a project that's coming up that's going to last 3 years, 5 years, that you might be in a training position that you are going to outgrow and wind up at another county or outside into the private sector.
Right.
I think this internship program allows us to hone our own craft internally to say, how are we at training, catch and release? You know what I mean? And I think that would be a refreshing exercise for us to be able to look at. And I got to be honest with you, they're smart, they're fast, they're strong. We can learn as much from them as they can from us. You know, us gray hairs, there's a little yin and yang with that. And in my businesses, especially the insurance agency, we use interns all the time. We try and grab them from high school and keep them through senior year in college. And believe me, I write the greatest reference letters in the world, but some of our people are now teachers in Washington, DC, an actuarial up in Madison, Wisconsin. I mean, these kids go on to be great people and they started humble. I mean, Audrey's in the room. She'll tell you that, you know, these kids pick up the phone and they, you know, they're trembling and nervous. Oh my God, I have to talk to somebody. All I do is text. And by the time you're teaching them how to be an adult, a business person, how to craft. And now these kids, they don't write an email. AI does it for them, for crying out loud. There's a lot that it's a give and take. So anyhow, Jamie, thank you so much.
Okay,
I think
I had one other
I'm so
point
sorry.
before you cut in.
Okay, but we have other stuff.
I
so
know
make it
this is quick.
Sir.
Well, the important thing, I think we need to make sure all the departments are using them and not just making them be copy people, for example. We got to challenge them. And there's
Critical
lots of
thinking,
opportunity.
critical thinking, teach critical
Yes.
thinking.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, that's it.
We can definitely come up with some strategies and guidelines and things to help encourage and give some guardrails or some guidelines regarding those internships. And I do support it. My first experience with Kane County, I did an internship with the Chief Judge's Office. So part of a school program. So
These two are going, geez, Frank doesn't have us do any of this stuff. Okay, our final item, and if you have what you need there, Jamie, thank you. Our final item, we've been asked to grapple with this notion of item F, Kane County Board Member Allowance and related travel expenses. Boy, this is just, you know, here's a time bomb laid at our feet and, you know, let's tackle this. I think that yesterday, Mo, are you online with us at all? I don't see him here, but yes, he is. Mo, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so yesterday, I just want to make sure that I speak clearly. Yesterday, Mo had eloquently put up a slide showing a couple of items, and the second item was the thing that I was most concerned with. It talked about authorization, and Mo, if I go astray here, let me know that. And authorization, you know, at face value, you look at that word and you say, you know, do I have authority to go to a conference, to spend this money, to attend this, to get on that airplane? And while at face value, that seems like that's the request, the way our statute, the way our ordinance, the way our guidelines are written is that if somebody has attended, then we do authorize that. And John, Mr. Frank, tell me if am I mistaken in that general tendency? Feel free to read that back if you'd like.
So Frank, I guess what I would tell you is it relates to the PEVs. The two major decisions that I've heard come up a lot as it relates to what's currently written under your rules is whether or not anyone has to go get pre-approval. And the bigger issue, I think, is also who decides that pre-approval. You have the classic scenario where if the county board has to pre-approve, well, you got to go through the entire process. You would have to start at standing committees, you would have to go through executive, you have to go through county board. That presumes everybody's in agreement to even put it on those calendars. If you delegate your authority to some individual or a standing committee, for example, Human Services, it happens quicker, but then you run the risk of having a smaller group of people just make that determination as opposed to the county.
So
board.
what I heard yesterday, and tell me if I'm wrong, the conversation was if some group feels as if you were working on county business, then you are thereby authorized.
Yes, think of like the emergency affidavits that a lot of the departments do where they decide they're going to buy something on the risk that you might deny it and then it comes out of their own budget. Same concept. So here, let's say, and I know this comes up a lot, Madam Chair goes on trips and stuff like that. When she submits a PEV, she's presuming she's doing it under county business but the risk is the county board may disagree. And if they deny it, then it comes out of her own personal pocket. That's the way it's currently set up now. And that's true for any of the county board members as well. If you all decide you want to do a pre-approval process, then that county board member or Madam Chair doesn't run that risk because it's essentially already decided. So then the question becomes, well, what if something happens where someone wants to go downstate to Springfield and let's say the lobbyist group says, we need you down here right now to help lobby this thing that you wanted through. We need somebody here shaking hands. How do you go through that if it's got to go to the county board as pre-approval?
Okay, so based on what Mo brought up yesterday and based on John Frank's explanation, I got into a very heated, very friendly debate with Ms. Gums, who was online yesterday. And part of what we were hashing out was, Mr. Surges, you're not suggesting that I have to ask approval to attend something. And I said, Ms. Gums, by no means, you were elected by the people. You attend whatever you want to. The point is, who's paying for it? Are you asking for permission to be reimbursed? And I think that should be done up front, not behind. So then I called Mr. Berman and I said, hey, Dale, we need to find a way to expedite this swiftly so that if somebody was to receive a call on Monday saying, I need you someplace on Thursday, how fast could we get that done for them? And I said, would you consider a subcommittee, an ad hoc, whatever label you want to put on with it? What if we had somebody from HR? What if we had somebody from finance? What if we had somebody from legislative? I think we're the three committees. And if we had these three people and empowered them with the ability to say yay or nay, would that be expeditious enough for us not to get caught in this? It would take us 3 months to approve this sort of thing. And can the state's attorney craft something that allows that reimbursement, travel, whatever committee you want to label it? Would this body of 24 people be interested in making that happen? And Dale said, I would be in agreement with that. And Ms. Gums said, hey, listen, as long as you're not trying to limit what I can and can't do, and it's just regarding payments, then the conversation can go into, well, how much should the payment be? And then Madam Chair came back and said, well, Cliff, it's not just a matter of payments and budget. There's other items such as benefits, like cell phones, like laptops, like mileage reimbursement. And so you can see how the word scope creep went from a very easy, can I go or can't I go, to holy cow, you're kidding me. This is a lot of stuff to tackle. I don't know that we can tackle it in one meeting today, but I absolutely wanted to open the door and say, I think these are the issues that we're trying to address. And the first thing is kind of saying, would this committee agree to having some sort of a subcommittee that's made up of 3 different committees, legislative, HR, and finance, that can kind of govern this expeditiously? Ms. Juby is shaking her head for those online. Would we have interest in doing that as a management tool or not? Ms. Silva, Dr. Silva, I must apologize.
Thank you, Chair. I would absolutely be in favor of that. A couple of add-ons to what you've just so perfectly said. We're all elected officials. We're all responsible to our constituency. Everything that we do pretty much is public record. What we spend our money is public record. We each have individual PACs. We each have individual opportunities. That said, I am a huge proponent of learning, again, and of educational opportunities. So I want to have the freedom to continue to go to conferences and to learn as much as I can, because I try to bring that back to you. I try to use the philosophies that I've learned and from the conferences and educational resources that I've had, and I bring them here. So the more I know, the more you know, the more you do, the more you bring to the county, Madam Chair, the richer we are.
So can I challenge you with a question to that proposition?
Absolutely.
What would be the budget? What's an appropriate amount? Because right now the budget is about $120 for the whole county. And somebody is suggesting we should raise that to be like $40,000.
That is the operative question, and I would throw a number out there. Of course, we need to look at budgets, we need to look at where things are going, but I would throw a budget of maybe 500 per board member. 500 to 1,000. I understand that's a lot of money, but we have money sitting in not grants, in reserves that could be put to use for something. And some would say, well, if you're not using it for anything, give it back. I'm just throwing a number out there. We'd have to look at that a little bit more.
I thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Molina, I see you 1 second.
Please.
Ms. Bates, hang on 1 second. Ms. Molina has her
Okay.
hand up, but let's go to State's Attorney, Mr. Shepro.
May I just offer a brief historical perspective?
Could we stop you is the question.
You can, well, we're not going back to 1850.
Closer to your mic, Mr. Shepro.
Yes. When McConaughey was chair, I think that there were two categories. One is what Dr. Silva is talking about, which is ongoing educational opportunities for board members. And the other, which you've alluded to, are specific assignments. We need to go to Springfield for a bill. We need to go to Washington for a bill. There's a specific mission that is, all of these are county business, but some are directly related to, yeah. And it seems to me that there was a distinction at that time that was made. So, there was a kind of a generic, as suggested, a budget for the ongoing educational, but there was a different process if somebody needed to go on a, mission from God on this.
Duly noted. Thank you. And I do remember some of that. Ms. Molina?
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I have a couple of suggestions. The first one is I believe that the Legislative Committee should have its own budget set aside. There's currently no budget for the board members of the Legislative Committee. There should be a budget there that would entail any kind of Springfield trips that needed to be taken by the Legislative Committee. We should also identify any kind of in any kind of personal, professional enrichment classes that can be offered to the county board members. It should be identified what organizations we would be able to pay for, like NACO or some I've attended, the NALEO organizations. There should be a list of organizations that are identified. And it's very easy for us to go on and see what the registration fees are for the conferences that are held yearly by these organizations. And then identify what we would recommend, our county board members attend, and divide it into 3 or 4, because most of our terms are 4 years, and say 6 board members are, given this much per year to attend these conferences if they choose to.
Do you chair that committee?
I chair judicial and public safety.
Okay. Gums
But
chairs
I-
legislative? I mean,
M-
could
Miss-
we collaborate as a group of committee chairs to come up with something?
Well, that's why my suggestion had been an executive is to have an ad hoc committee, similar to what you're saying.
Okay.
Where we're able to identify all these organizations that, I think are great and I think bring a lot of information to us as county board members. There's state and there's local organizations. But aside from that, I think the legislative committee should have a budget set aside for those, those mission trips to Springfield or to Washington, DC. So
Okay.
that would be my suggestion.
And Mavis, I'll come to you in a second, but Mo, I want to put you on the spot here a little bit because
Sure.
if memory serves me correct, and thank you for looking so dapper this morning. You always do when you're online. If memory serves correct, you were very verbal on some of these back a few years ago when we visited this. Am I correct in that?
I was, back a few years back. Yeah, I was not verbal at the time, but I heard. And I thought, at that time, Mr. Lawson was the chairperson, and there was a group of board members who were questioning his decision to buy a book or something like that. And it was in the newspaper. Everyone can read it. It's still there. And I think this ordinance that we have, or the section we have, is vague, and it's been used politically against anybody. I mean, I can get up and throw mud at anybody who presents a voucher. So it has to be tied. It has to be unambiguous, and that's the effort I
get that. We don't want this to be a partisan thing. This isn't a political thing. We need to come up with some set of guidelines that we can all agree to follow. And I didn't mean to put you on the spot, Mo. That wasn't I just remember you having some strong feelings on this, and I want to bring those forward. Mavis?
No, I have a strong feeling in the sense that I think that it is being abused. This voucher system people use wherever they want to. They go where they want to go. They spend the money the way they want to spend the money. And I said yesterday, everywhere you drive, you go to Chicago, you drive, look at one of the vouchers we had yesterday. The luncheon fee was $65 and the parking fee was $53. The driving was something, so it came to $180 just for one lecture, and lecture was not connected with the county government. It was about the high-speed rail. And what is big about high-speed rail?
No, I understand your feelings. Thank you. Mavis?
Okay, thanks. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay,
We're sad that we can't see you, though.
Well, I'm smiling and waving. My suggestion would be that the standing committee does the decision making because they're the closest to the issues of whether, if Mavis wants to go to an environmental conference somewhere, the environmental committee is going to know more about that than anybody else. So why not just keep that, and it'd be pretty quick, especially you could poll your members if you had to on the quickly. And that's my suggestion, that the standing committees make the decisions about
Mavis, I'm
authorization.
very much in favor of that as well. I believe that a pre-authorization from the standing committee, but a budget amount would need to be set up for that. That's being tallied by finance somehow. And that's my feelings.
That's good too. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Cliff.
Ms. Juby? We're just before 10 o'clock.
So you want me to talk really slowly?
Yes, or as slow as you can, please.
So I have a couple things. One, are we carving out specifically the chair and the county board members when we talk about travel expenses, or are we doing anyone who does travel expenses, any electeds? So
That's a great question. I did not anticipate
okay,
that.
so there's multiple questions. Maybe I should just go through my thing
Yes.
and then we can, okay. So if we are just carving out the chair and the board, are we then carving out the board more than the chair? Or is the chair also going to have to go through the same pre-vetting as the board members are? Because to me, the way this looks, it looks like we're just talking about the individual board members. And the individual board members are governed by 50 ILCS 150. So I disagree that we don't have something in place. I think what we have in place is what people are not in agreement with, which is very, very different than not having something. I appreciated the interpretation of approval by what the state's attorney told us yesterday. The approval comes before the full board, and the full board determines whether or not it's going to pay. That's approval. That's how I took it in the code. The other question I have is, and trust me, I am all about professional development. I've done years of professional development, and I don't think we do enough. And I am perfectly willing to do it on my own. So this, I'm trying to say I don't have a dog in the race, because if I see something to do, I'm going to do it whether I get reimbursed or not. However, when we do professional development, or when we go somewhere and we approve these PEVs and they're not telling us what they brought back to the thing, that's us being careless and not doing our job. So whatever we have in place, whether it's an ad hoc committee, which I will not be voting for, we need to have some type of reporting system where they bring back what they learn, because every trip to Springfield is not work related. It does not enrich us, but most of them do. And so I am willing to give a benefit of the doubt for someone that wants to go. If you think you need to go to Springfield, you go. I trust you. If you're going to abuse it, maybe I won't vote for your expenses to be reimbursed. But those are my feelings. And I think that we need to be very, very careful of the slippery slope we're going down when we're carving out one elected official group over all the others. And in terms of employees, they have to report to their executive director.
So let me challenge you on that, because
Oh, I love a challenge.
I know you do. With internal control, how would we possibly govern that?
Ding, 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 ding. We can't.
Correct.
Which means we are then
Talking
carving
about
out-
the 24 of us and the board chair, so 25.
Right.
Are you talking about department heads as well? Aren't those already governed by their individual departments?
Department heads are governed. So the only ones we seem to be talking about are the committee are the county board chair and the county board members.
Let's keep refining that scope. Mr. Frank?
So the statute that Ms. Juvie is referring to creates an outline and separates the facts of officers and employees versus essentially what the county board would be. Anybody that's considered an administrative body, aka the board, has to theoretically go through the board as an ultimate vote. You can, however, if you all decide to create a policy that says we as a board will agree to the following, then theoretically you could delegate kind of a tacit pre-approval to employees to say, yes, this qualifies under the policy. No, this doesn't qualify under the policy. And then you could have that person or employee or group of employees come to the county board and say, this complies with our policy. And then ultimately it's still up to the board. But I think if you kind of tacitly understand that as long as it fits within your policy, you will approve it, that alleviates some of the concern where you have a board member that might incur $5,000 in expenses, was pre-approved through the policy, and then doesn't really run the risk of having it to eat it. You do, under the statute, have to have a final roll call vote to formally approve it and have it, quote, paid. But you could do alternatives here that would still allow you to give some assurances on the flip side. The other aspect to this is employees and officers, as long as you don't need it to come to you unless it exceeds, and that's the key here, exceeds your own policy. So the flip side of internal control is if an elected official does not want to pay for it out of their own budget, no different than if they're seeking, let's say, cars or anything like that that's coming through you, then they would be subjected to your policies. But as long as it's within their discretion, within their allotment of money for this type of stuff, internal control will prevail. So that's the breakdown of kind of the three different buckets we're talking about. And within those guidelines, I think you guys can work out something that would allow for kind of a tacit pre-approval process. But it's still subject to the whims of individual voters on this board. So
John, I don't ever want to see, this is just me personally, I don't ever want to see people making choices that would benefit the county because of their inability. We have 24 people and 25, with our chair, but if there's somebody who says, listen, that trip would be $3,000 and quite honestly, I just don't have at the front, that's a really bad situation. We're a multi-million-dollar group and that education might be worth it, or those contacts we had. On the other hand, I don't like this notion of asking for forgiveness instead of permission. You shouldn't have gone if you expected us to pay for it without asking. I mean, no offense, but if my daughter says, hey, I spent this on your credit card, I'm going to say, why didn't you ask beforehand?
I would suggest humbly that maybe a middle ground for you all to consider is, with the consent of Madam Chair, large ticket items where we're talking about like DC trips can be put on the next county board meeting without having to go through the committee process for the board just to simply approve. And that's going to be about the fastest you're going to be able to do it and still be in compliance with the law, where you essentially can pre-approve something. Because I don't think anyone's going to say $200-300 is something they can't float on this county board, but $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 trips to DC, absolutely, I get why that would be, or Springfield, and those don't come up all that often where it would be last second. The only time I've seen it happen is essentially like where a lobbyist needs you to come down.
Agreed. Mr. Tepe, did you have something, sir?
Yes, sir. Thank you. First off, essentially, I really want to primarily agree with Ms. Juby. In my opinion, we have 25 individuals who are elected individuals. We're elected independently. So we don't report to anyone except our constituents. So in reality, managing us in certain ways is not going to be appropriate. Okay. Second, I don't think anybody's getting rich over the compensation that we receive as county board members, right? At least I'm not. Okay. We're not really compensated for the time and effort that we put in general, in comparison to having a full-time job. So I don't want to be put in a position of having to say to any one of my fellow board members, gee, you can't go to that. Okay. I also think this is somewhat of a knee-jerk reaction to one particular situation, which, in hindsight, everything could have been handled differently. But again, it's one particular situation. Why do we need to have a detailed set of rules associated with that? Okay. I don't want to second guess necessarily any of my fellow board members, but I also really like Mr. Frank's suggestion of, if any of us is going to go on a trip, okay, or on an event that's going to perhaps exceed the amount that we might not want to risk associated with asking for reimbursement, that we should get prior approval, and that approval should come from the board. So I think we're spending a lot of time, and could spend a lot of time, coming up with very detailed rules that I don't think would necessarily be appropriate. So thank you.
Vern, thank you. And again, I want to reiterate that the conversation that I spoke of between board member Gums and myself, I don't believe the conversation was in any way, shape, or form controlling who can or can't do what or when. The conversation was, whose budget does that come out of, and are you asking reimbursement? And then the second item is, we just don't have a budget. I mean, there's no money set aside for this. So we really need to kind of say, going forward in the 25 budget, Ms. Hopkinson and Mr. Berman, this is the amount that we'd like to put there. And I think that makes sense. And then the final item there was, there's a request being tagged onto this that includes, mileage, cell phones, laptops, you know, and Madam Chair, I'll come to you, but Ms. Gums has her hand up you know, so Vern, I don't want to dismiss this as, you know, unfortunately, people have taken the opportunity to scope creep this a little bit. And so let's just deal with it or not. Ms. Gums?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We did have a great conversation last night. I wouldn't have called it heated, but you know, I talk to you often. So anyways, I just wanted to talk on the, we don't have a budget for this issue and give a little history on that. So we did have a budget, and consistently have had a budget of $7,000 for board travel, conferences, etc. I requested last year to increase the budget to $20,000 for board members, all 24 of us. Rather, that budget was decreased from 7,000 to 3,500. I think we're looking for a solution to a problem that isn't really there. You can approve it or you don't approve it. I think we're talking about, now that it's done and voted on, I'll speak on it, but I knew going to that conference that you may not approve my PEV. I knew that. I also knew what was in the budget. I knew what the benefits were. I think we're trying to create something here that we don't have the authority to create. I get it, but I just, I don't agree with it. And I think that if you're trying to, you know, if you're trying to suggest that we shouldn't be doing, well, I don't know that anybody's trying to suggest we shouldn't be doing things. I'm just saying we are digging into a problem right now that isn't a problem. We have an appropriate budget or we don't. You approve it or you don't. And I you know, that's my position on it. So I'm just going to have a hard time telling somebody they can't go to something.
Yeah, Michelle, as we stated last night, you know, nobody is saying you can or cannot. The question is, do you have an appropriate amount of budget for people to attend, and does that need to be increased?
Right, but to your point earlier, you know, it was a ding, ding, ding moment for me because there are board members that do not have the upfront money to spend on travel. So it is an absolute gamble. So if you're saying to me in upfront, I am not paying for you to go to do this thing, then that person simply does not and will not have the opportunity to attend no matter what, because they don't have the money. And I speak from personal experience on that. So year 1, year 2, and year 3, I didn't go. Year 4, I finally had it. So, but I knew going in that you may not pay for it.
Thank you. Mr. Kenyon?
I've been here a long time. And I don't remember so much trouble. And I remember when Mr. Lawson bought a book and people were jabbing him about it, but we never had this problem. We went to Washington, DC. Karen took, I think, 4 of us, 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats, and we lobbied for something in there, and we came home successful. There was no question. We never paid for anything. The county paid for all of it. So maybe it is a problem we don't really have, but it'd be better to ask permission than forgiveness.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. State's Attorney.
Yeah, again, some historical perspective. Mr. Kenyon is correct, but I think that there was also a distinction. The lawyers are probably better at this. The seminar on Illinois workmen's compensation law that is in the Virgin Islands, or the NACO conference that is in Honolulu. And I know that perhaps there was no formal regulation of it, but I think there was some weighing of the cost and relative fringe benefit weighed against the value of what it was.
The knowledge base, right.
And, you know, obviously, you know, especially because some of the national county organizations tend to be more heavily weighted towards certain parts of the country.
Ms. Molina, do we move this forward and continue discussions or just remove this from agenda?
Sir, I'm not on your committee. I think
Yeah,
the
but you had
benefit of.
you had some strong feelings on
Well,
this.
I think the benefit of talking about it is to make sure that county board members are aware that there is an option. Not everybody, you know, may be aware we're going to have a few new board members next year. And I think we should let them know that if they do want to do some personal enrichment, professional enrichment classes, that there are these organizations available that they should be able to attend and that they should be reimbursed for. I don't think we shouldn't allow people to do it or we're restricting. I think it's making it a conversation where people are aware that there's things available out there for them and they're gonna, provide benefit not just to the individual county board member, but to all of us as a whole. So that's more where I stand. I don't feel that Ms. Scums should have, gambled whether or not she was going to get reimbursed for her trip. I think we should have all been known about the trip. And if we knew there was money available, maybe one or two more county board members would have been willing to attend as well. I think it's not a question of, only those who can afford it. I think as county board members, we should all be giving those opportunities.
Thank you so much. Madam Chair, you've been patient.
Thank you very much.
Dale, I see you. And then, and we're pushing quarter after. Let's kind of wrap this in about 8 minutes here. Yeah.
Absolutely. So we were taking a look at other counties, what are best practices, because I'd like to see what other counties are doing to see if they work potentially for Kane County. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel. This opportunity to have a guideline of what is available to our board members. This was pretty comprehensive at some of the other counties. And not only did it include a list of professional organizations like NACO that would be sanctioned opportunities to go. It also includes the opportunity of having resources given by the county to each individual board member for a mailing, for a newsletter. Yesterday's conversation with Mavis Bates and Ms. Gums, they said, oh, wouldn't it be nice to have a shredding event, et cetera, so that each board member would be given some money to spend on their own district as they see appropriate. So it was a computer, sometimes a cell phone. It's a comprehensive list of what opportunities the board, the county is willing to do to support each one of its 24 board members. And then an aligned budget, of course, would be with that. So when you come in and you take office, here's your opportunities for enrichment and support as an elected official, which is you have portable offices basically. So here's your budget for your office, which I found very interesting. The other thing is I would like to address is if Karen McConaughey, let's use her as an example because that was brought up, wanted to take, or legislative said, we'd like to take our legislative committee representatives to go to NACO, to go to, we have to go lobby in Washington or go to a NACO conference. Which
I like Ken's work comp thing in the tropics. That was. Yes.
We'll arrange that just for you. We have to put it on our own personal credit card to be able to move this forward. We cannot use a county credit card to do this. Now, our department heads do use their debit card, our credit card, the county credit card. I can't speak to our other elected officials. I don't know how they would handle their expenses. But for us, we have to put it on our personal account. So I'm wondering if Karen McConaughey was able to support your travel expenses when you went down to Washington. And it's pretty expensive. It's maybe $30,000, 25.
I
maybe.
don't remember. I never paid a dime.
Yeah,
And
so,
we were all on business.
Yes.
And we came back with some things for the
Yeah,
judiciary.
Madam Chair, I'm under the impression that you actually have a P card and we don't.
I have a P card that I don't use.
Okay.
The only use for that P card is that if we need to buy supplies for the office.
Got it.
Or if we need to buy lunch for everybody for a long meeting. That's the use of it. I don't touch it.
At this minute in time, Mr. Berman, this doesn't seem to be a policy decision for human services. This seems to be a budget discussion that I would greatly love to move this to your committee, sir.
Fine. In comment, I think that this discussion is really good. It really is. And I think the worst thing about the trip that Ms. Gum took is that no one knew about it. It was it came to us as a surprise, okay? Our county board is one organization that I've joined that we have no indoctrination. We know nothing about what's going on. We learn as the years go by. What we can do and can't. And I think, if we knew some of this information when we first started, we'd be much better off and be able to understand what others are doing. So that's, that's my.
So what I heard you say is you're willing to accept this on your agenda, sir.
Yeah.
Mr. Kenyon, feel free to get those lungs going. I need a
Are we ready?
motion to place reports on file.
Yes. Yeah, I've asked for unanimous consent.
Unanimous consent. Any dissension there? There's no need for executive session.
I would move we adjourn and greet the day.
There a second there, Ms. Silva? Beautiful.
Or start another meeting.
All righty. Thank you very much for attending this morning. We look forward to continuing this the next date.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.